Hi, my name is David. I'm an electrical engineer studying at a four-year university. And I also work about like 35 hours, 35 to 37 hours a week at Target. So this is kind of like more or less going to be a video about just how to work and maintain grades over the span of a semester, because it's pretty difficult. So just a little disclaimer, I don't think that working and maintaining straight A's is impossible, because I've done it and I'm an electrical engineer, so that's a pretty challenging major in itself. So I think it's very much possible, but it's gonna require a lot of sacrifices on your end, and it's gonna be very difficult. Typically, working 35 hours, working 35 hours is hard in itself, and you kind of have limited time to like have a social life, and then going to school is like just makes it even worse. But it is definitely possible to do these things. It's just going to require a lot from your end. So I think the first thing that is not stressed enough just not stressed enough in general, is knowing your professor and like spending the time to get to know them and what they're like. Typically, or just for me, like this has really changed the game, because I have so much on my plate as it is. Taking like 6 classes and then working a large amount, I'm very time constricted, and with that I tend to forget a lot. There was one time that I forgot my time for my final exam for one of my classes, and I developed this relationship with the professor, staying late a little bit. Like it only takes 5 minutes of your day, just stay a little bit later after class and just be like, hey, I really liked what you taught here. Can you go into more depth, or just to show your general interest in the subject that they're teaching, to feel like they're not going unnoticed and this is just not another class to you. And I feel that doing that really helps your connection, and in doing that, making that connection with your teacher, you're basically you can kind of but when it comes to needing a favor, they're more willing to go with it and kind of just do things for you that they might not do for others, because you showed that interest. Secondly, I think the second most important thing is going to be your study habits. If you're going to university and you're working a large set of hours a week, it's going to be hard for you to even make time to study. But there is going to be time, and this is where I said the sacrifices are going to have to come in from your part. You're gonna have to study typically in between. Like what I usually did was study. I would wake up before class, I would study for about an hour or two, and this varies on your class schedule, but I would study an hour or two before class, just whatever I felt like I needed to cover. And then I would get out, and then I would study some more, and then I would go to work, get out, maybe study, because typically I get out of work at 3, 4, 5 a.m. But yeah, so I think that your study habits have to be really good, and then you just have to be getting the information down and just really soaking everything in, making sure that you have an in-depth understanding of everything. Asking the teachers for help is one of the best things to do if you're falling behind, because if you're falling behind and you have a job, it's going to be hard for you to catch up, as opposed to someone who doesn't have a job. So doing these things in your free time, instead of like scrolling or watching TikTok, you can be studying, and that's kind of like the sacrifice you have to make, because it's going to be hard, but it's in sacrifice for the grade. Thirdly, I think is huge, just to prevent anything like on the mental aspect happening to a person when they're doing this, is social relationships. And although it is kind of like superficial to make relationships solely for the benefit of maintaining your grades, so like in benefit of you, I think it still helps on the mental aspect of this, because it is mentally like challenging for a person to work a large amount of hours and go to school and take a lot of classes and get high grades. So I think the best thing you can do in that situation is probably just going to be, making friends in your classes that have similar interests to you and want to learn as well, and that can also like kind of perpetuate your growth, so that way, you're growing with them and they're growing with you, and there's like a somewhat of a bond. A lot of the friendships that I made in college kind of came from this idea. Like I kind of just got together with a group of people in my classes, we studied, and then sometimes we'd go eat, and stuff like that. And it kind of balances a little bit of like the social work life, because I mean there's not going to be really much of a social life when you're doing all this, but it gives it a little bit of balance. The fourth thing is going to be your availability and how you manage your work outside of school. So, I mean, a lot of us don't choose the days that we work. Instead, it's chosen for us. So that can like lead to some inconsistencies in scheduling. I think that, with me, my schedule was super inconsistent, and with that, I had to be shifting everything around. So, with like, you have to be managing your grades as well and your classes around those, inconsistencies. So I think not procrastinating is one of the biggest things that I struggled with. And yeah, so just procrastination as a whole is just going to be really bad whenever you're on such a like small time constraint, and you have like, you don't have too much wiggle room to be missing like assignments. Like, so that's what you just really have to be on top of your grades. Setting times to do things really helps. Just like take a mental note of like, okay, I'll do this at this time, this at this time, and this at this time, and get things done when you say you're gonna do them, instead of procrastinating, because it kind of defeats the whole purpose. But yeah, so doing that really helps, at least with stress, because stress wise it's gonna benefit you in the long run, because you're not gonna be doing assignments, like 10 assignments in one day before you have a shift. And then it's like, I didn't get to eat before my shift. I feel horrible. I'm gonna go home. I feel horrible. Kind of throws off your entire, your mood and everything like that. Some last words of advice that I have are to, have your priorities straight. I know that for me, my priority is always going to be school. Although I am working a lot, I still prioritize school over work. But if that's not your case, like that makes perfect sense, utilities and everything like that. But for me, yeah, I would prioritize school over work. And with doing that, you need to, if you feel like you're going to be behind an assignment or you need more time to study, you either call into work or you say that you're not going to be able to go on your scheduled time if they allow it for you to show up later. Just so that way, you have your priorities straight and you're not going to be sacrificing your schoolwork for your work. Another thing to add is that kind of just have fun with it. If you're required to get all A's because of some mental standard that you hold yourself to, I guess it's gonna prevent you from having fun with it. But, still try to get these high grades and be okay with if you don't make the marks that you wanted, because at the end of the day, you're shooting for, you're shooting for the moon and you're landing with the stars. And if you don't get an A in the class, you're still gonna get a B, which is still, it's worse, but it's still good as far as the school. Some people say that seems to get degrees. It's definitely the way to go about your education. But it's things like that you just kind of have to not really put so heavy on yourself. You don't need to get these grades for anybody else but yourself.